Mara Ellison had $31 in her checking account and a second-hand dress she'd ironed 3 times to hide the collar stain. She was 28 years old, working double shifts at a diner off Route 9, and she had agreed to a blind date only because her co-worker Denise wouldn't stop asking. The man's name was Ethan Cole. Denise said he was quiet, recently widowed, and raising 6-year-old twin daughters alone. She said nothing else, because Denise herself didn't know the rest. What Denise didn't know, what nobody in this small town knew, was that Ethan Cole owned 4 manufacturing plants across 2 states and had sold his family's logistics company 2 years earlier for an amount that made lawyers whisper. He drove a 10-year-old truck on purpose. He wore flannel on purpose. Since his wife died in a car accident that he still blamed himself for, he had learned one brutal lesson. Money made people perform. Smiles turned professional. Kindness turned transactional. He wanted, more than anything, to find a woman who would look at his daughters and see 2 little girls who missed their mother, not 2 little heiresses with a trust fund attached. Mara had her own secret, though hers ran in the opposite direction. She had grown up in a house with a wine cellar and a tennis court, the only daughter of a real estate developer who had wanted a son to take over the business and gotten a daughter who wanted nothing to do with it. At 24, Mara had walked away from the family fortune after watching her father destroy 3 marriages and a small town's economy with the same cold calculation. She changed her last name back to her grandmother's, moved 4 hours away, and swore she would never again be loved for what was in her bank account. She waited tables not because she had to, but because for the first time in her life, she wanted to know if anyone could love the version of her that had nothing. So when she sat down across from Ethan at a diner booth that smelled like burnt coffee, and he mentioned, almost apologetically, that he had 2 little girls at home and not much money to show for himself, something in Mara's chest went quiet and still. She smiled and said that was more than fine. She said money never mattered much to her anyway. She had no idea she was lying to a billionaire, and he had no idea he was lying right back. Their first date lasted 4 hours, though neither of them planned for more than one. Ethan talked about his daughters, Lily and Grace, with a tenderness that undid something in Mara she'd kept locked since her mother passed. Mara talked about growing up modest, about learning to stretch a grocery budget, and she watched Ethan's shoulders relax with every word, as if her supposed poverty was proof she was safe to trust. Neither of them realized they were each building the exact disguise the other one needed to see. The second date, Ethan brought the twins. Lily had her mother's eyes and Grace had her mother's stubborn chin, and both of them latched onto Mara within 20 minutes, tugging her toward the swing set, demanding she push them higher, higher, higher. Mara laughed in a way she hadn't laughed in years, and Ethan stood back and watched, and for the first time since the accident, he let himself believe that maybe, just maybe, this ordinary diner waitress with the patched coat was going to be the miracle his daughters needed. Weeks folded into months. Mara kept living in her small rented apartment above the hardware store. She kept driving her rusted-out Corolla, even though she could have bought the dealership. Ethan kept wearing the same 3 flannel shirts on rotation and driving the truck with the cracked windshield, even though he could have bought the county. They were both terrified that the moment either of them revealed the truth, the whole fragile thing would collapse, that the other person would either flee from the money or, worse, suddenly change because of it. It was Grace who almost broke everything wide open. One evening at Ethan's house, the 6-year-old proudly showed Mara a magazine, one that had somehow ended up in the recycling bin instead of the shredder, with her father's photograph on the cover under a headline about the sale of Cole Logistics Group. Mara stared at the number in that headline for a long, silent moment. $412 million. She felt her stomach drop the way it had the day she left her father's house for good. That old, familiar fear that money changes everything it touches, that maybe Ethan had been performing modesty this whole time the way she had. She almost left that night without saying goodbye. She sat in her car outside his house for 20 minutes, keys in the ignition, hands shaking, before Grace came running out in her socks, no shoes, calling Mara's name and asking why she was leaving so fast. Mara looked at that little girl standing on the cold porch steps in the moonlight, and she understood, in the way you understand very few things in life with total certainty, that whatever Ethan had lied about, his love for his daughters had never been an act. And if that part was real, maybe the rest was worth a conversation instead of a getaway. She went back inside and asked him directly. Was he rich? Was all of it, the truck, the flannel, the modest little house, was it a costume? Ethan's face went pale, and for a moment Mara thought he might deny it, might keep the lie running a little longer. Instead, he exhaled like a man setting down something heavy he'd been carrying for 2 years, and he told her everything. The company, the sale, the reason he'd hidden it. He told her he had done it because after his wife died, 3 different women had shown interest in him within a month of the public sale announcement, and every one of them had mentioned his money before they'd asked his daughter's names. Mara sat with that for a long moment, and then she started laughing, quietly at first, then harder, until tears ran down her face. Ethan asked what was so funny, looking genuinely wounded, and Mara told him her secret in return. The house with the tennis court. The father who built strip malls and broke marriages. The trust fund she had never touched and never would. She told him she had spent 4 years learning to trust people who thought she had nothing, because the moment they knew what she came from, she could never again be sure why they stayed. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan started laughing too, that disbelieving, relieved laugh of 2 people who had spent months protecting themselves from a danger that never existed. They had each built an elaborate disguise to test the other's heart, and in the process, they had fallen in love with 2 people who didn't exist. But underneath the disguises, underneath the flannel and the ironed thrift store dress, the actual people, the ones who loved Lily's dinosaur obsession and Grace's stubborn chin and each other's terrible taste in diner coffee, those people had been real the entire time. They were married the following spring in a small ceremony that Ethan's money never touched. No ice sculptures, no 500-person guest list, just Denise from the diner, a few neighbors, and 2 little flower girls who insisted on wearing rain boots under their dresses. Mara didn't move into a mansion. She asked Ethan if they could keep living close to the same modest house, close to the same swing set, because that was where she'd fallen in love with a family, not a fortune. Ethan agreed before she even finished the sentence. Years later, when Lily and Grace were old enough to understand the story properly, they would ask their parents to tell it again and again at the dinner table. The story of the rich man who pretended to be poor and the woman who'd pretended right back. Both of them terrified of being loved for the wrong reason. Both of them saved by a stubborn 6-year-old who ran outside in her socks rather than let the right person drive away. Mara would always finish the story the same way. She would say that real love was never about who had less to hide. It was about who stayed once everything was finally uncovered. If this story moved you, stay a moment longer, because there's another one waiting that might move you even more.